Well, first of all, thank you for coming. This is our first speaker series with the Minnesota Daily Alumni Association mentorship program. I'm joined by Jim Berghs, who's a family friend of mine, and he has been kind enough to kind of go through his mentorship experience and talk about how his journey's kind of gone through his career and how I'll kind of give the floor to you.
Thanks, Christian. I just want to confirm timing today. How much time for presentation versus Q&A do you
Yeah,
want?
it's kind of up to you.
Okay.
I have a lot of set questions
All
that we
right.
can. Hope more people join and we can answer them. But I believe we're going. We said the latest was 7:30, but if we finish up early. We finish up early.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I wanted to give you a little bit of background about myself. I've noticed a couple of you have been reading my LinkedIn profile. So Christian has the agenda up there. But before we begin, I have spent my career, most of my career, in the banking and brokerage business, so financial industries, in a number of roles, technology, sales development, risk, compliance. Um, and I've been fortunate enough to also work for a company based in Minnesota called Mentium. And Mentium is the premier mentoring and inclusion company in the United States. And they work with Fortune 500 companies. They've been in business for many, many years. You should go out to their website and see what services they offer. It's not a plug. I don't work there any longer, but it's a great company. Um, I was the director of consulting services at Mentium. So my role was to go out to Fortune 500 companies and help them set up an internal mentoring program using our methodology. And I would partner with these companies for a little over 14 months, teaching them how to implement a mentoring program internally and then run it on their own and available if they need it. So it was a great experience. It taught me a lot, and it allowed me to move forward in my career in helping develop teams. And I want to share some of that knowledge about mentoring with you today. So I'm going to start with some basics, the benefits of mentoring. What do you as a mentee or mentor get out of your partnership? And how do you get started? So there's a lot of work that goes into a successful relationship, partnership. And I want to share some tips and tricks with you, and then talk about overall guidelines, how to ensure success, and then ask you some questions at the end that I think will help. So, benefits of mentoring. There's the obvious one. It gets you ready for either starting out in your careers, shifting careers, navigating inside organizations. Mentoring is also provides you with confidence. It gives you an opportunity to hone your communication skills. How do you present to senior leaders? How do you get feedback from others? So it's a great opportunity for sounding board to try out something. A good mentoring partnership will provide to you the opportunity to fail without failing with your manager. So it's a great opportunity to give you that immediate feedback without any impact to your career. A good partnership will help you navigate the organization. I think that's key as you get started in your careers. How do you know what and where? What are the unspoken rules? Every company has a culture. How do you learn what that culture is quickly so you can be successful? And that also provides you as an opportunity as you grow in your career to improve your relationship with your manager, your peers, and any direct reports that you may have. You as a mentee should get, as I said, that broad organizational view from a mentor. So when you're setting out, they should be able to help you with the landscape. It's going to give you an opportunity to build skills, as I mentioned. And it really is key that you, as a mentee, one of the benefits you'll derive from this is the opportunity to drive your personal and professional development. And that's a key success factor, is that you, as the mentee, own your development. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And it gives you an opportunity to learn from someone who may be different from yourself. So someone who has a different background from you, is in a different generation than you, who you will be starting out using AI, where many mentors may not have experience with AI. So it's a great opportunity for you to also help teach your mentor. Benefits to the mentors are just as important. I have found in working with Mentium in my research with hundreds of mentoring partnerships that the mentors often learn just as much from their mentees. So don't think it's one-sided in your partnership. The mentors will also have a great opportunity to learn from you what's important to your generation, how to approach work. I don't like to always sound like the back in my day story, but COVID really changed many things in how we look at work, and a lot was driven by the ability to use technology differently, and that is driven from a different generation. Mentors are learning what that is and what's important, and so that's a huge benefit in having a great partnership. It also gives mentors an opportunity, if you're working inside the same company, if your partnership later on is within someone in your own organization, to learn firsthand what's important to the new generation or a different generation of workers. So they get some great insights into what's important today. And again, it provides an opportunity to learn from a different generational and diverse background. So you can see how some of the partnership benefits overlap each other quite well. I'm going to pause here, and I'm just going to stop and give you a little story about myself. So when I'm working with people, they often ask me, well, how did you get to where you were? What was your path? Could you share a little insight with that? So I'm going to start with the story back in my career. When I started out in business, I worked for a financial firm, and it was a smaller company, 3,000 people. And the headquarters was very small. And so you worked with many people. You got to know everyone in the company. And when I started out, I was switching jobs every couple of years. And I didn't switch jobs to follow a path. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I started, but I was approached by people that I had worked with or that I had become friends with, who often said, hey, there's a role here we think you would be good at, or we'd like you to come over and work with us. And so that's how I did my career switching. And I did that for a few years, and I thought it was, pretty successful. I kept getting promoted, and I was approached to apply for a position within the company. And I went for the interview, made it through the first round. I went to the second round with a senior leader, and the senior leader really kind of stopped me in my tracks and said, why would I hire you? By reading your resume and knowing a little bit about you, it looks like you job hop quite often, like you're looking for the next great thing, and then you're not really invested in what you're doing. You seem to be looking for something better all the time. That person said, I don't know if I really want to invest in this new opportunity with you if you're just going to be a flight risk. And I tried to cover that up as best I could. And I was kind of deflated. It was the first time that I ever gotten any kind of feedback in an interview that I didn't think I was good as I thought I was, or that what I had been doing in my career path was what I should have been doing. I went back to my desk. The cube mate next to me asked me how it had gone in the interview, and I just shared with them the feedback. And they said, well, do you want some feedback? And I said, sure. So they gave me some things to think about. And what I took away from that at that point in time was a couple things. One, optics, how I was perceived from the outside and internally about where my career was going. And then I also learned that I needed a response, how I was framing up what my career had been at that point. So what I learned through this partnership that I established with my cube mate, who had been in the business for a few more years than I did, was how do I frame my abilities? So even though I had job hopped, every year, year and a half, 2 years, how could I package that in a way that looked like it was planned and not off the cuff? And so what I learned to do was to talk in terms of my abilities and what I was able to contribute to the organization in the roles that I had been in. So it didn't matter if I was in one department or another department. I brought these skills along that allowed me to either move something initiative forward, fix an issue, increase sales, but I had built that ability to tell that story. Without that mentor working through that situation with me and then becoming a mentor that I still use today, I don't know if I would have been able to navigate that interview. So I did make it to another round of interviews, and I was able to tell that story about and respond to the question of, why would I hire you? You seem like a flight risk. And so I was able to turn that around and talk more about that I went where the organization needed me. And these were the opportunities that I brought to these roles. And some of them were short-lived and some of them were longer. So I turned that negative into an opportunity, and I did that based on the feedback that I'd gotten from a mentor who helped coach me through that. Now, that situation was very ad hoc. There are other opportunities that I'm going to talk about when you want to have a more strategic approach with a mentor. But I just felt like when people ask me how I got started, this is how I got started, and it was not out on the best footing. So I applaud you for having a mentor now that you've been working with for the last few months to help you sort of navigate the nuances within organizations. All right, I'm going to move on to getting started now. So how do you get started? So I talked about how I got started with one organization in one situation. First thing to do is you're already in part of a program. When you leave this program, look to see if the company that you're working with has an internal program already set up. A lot of companies do. They offer that as a benefit. You should take advantage of that. If they don't, then take what you've been doing today with your mentor and move that forward. Create a program for yourself that you have that you can use when you need it. Where you should get started is looking at a number of things. Have you received feedback from jobs that you've worked at? Have you completed any skill assessments? Have you created a development plan? So I always like to say is, what is it that we're trying to achieve here? What are our goals? What is it that you want to get out of the partnership with your mentor? It should not be relaxed, right? You don't want to show up and not know where you're going, right? What is it that you want to achieve? Now, some of these goals can be short, obviously lived, long-lived, but exactly what is the desired outcome of it? So internally, if you're working with a mentor in a company that you are employed, find out what programs they have and then build a development plan. And a development plan can be a certain skill, or it can be a longer term plan that I want to manage people and I haven't managed people. Create a board of directors, if you will, a group of mentors that you will use over time, internal, external, and then I like to say industry specific. So if you belong, I was in financial, I had very specific financial people in technology and people in risk who were outside of my organization that were mentors. So you want to continue to build your network, try to build a network of internal, external, and industry peers that you can rely on. Also, look to develop competencies that complement the organizational mission, vision, or values. Every company has a set of qualities that are important to them that they expect leaders to have. The last company that I worked for had a set of criteria for individual contributors, leaders, and leaders of leaders. And then they broke that down into expected behaviors of above and beyond behaviors. And they created a grid for that. Find those grids, find those expectations, talk to a mentor, and figure out what those are. Self-assess yourself against those and build that into your development plan. So you're wanting to create value to the organization by you learning more about the organization. So the development plan is huge, right? You're going to start out and you're going to say, okay, what do I need to do on day one? And you hopefully have been working with your mentors on what that plan looks like. Develop that plan. That plan is going to change. I always like to say, know what the goal is, break it down by quarter, then by month, and then work on it, weekly, monthly, and roll it up by quarter. It's just easier to kind of chunk it out that way. Now, it could be as simple as AI, right? What do you know about AI? AI is critical. Those who know how to use AI are going to succeed, and those who don't are not going to have a role in the future. So, who in the organization, does your mentor know AI? Do you both need to learn AI? How do you stay on top of what those are? Build those things into your plan. Mentees, you drive the agenda, you drive the process, you drive finding a mentor. You own your development. It's key that you own it and you know what you want to get out of it and what that final destination looks like. Now, when you are going out, I like to say, try to find mentors that share 3 things in common with you. Maybe it's a school affiliation like this. Maybe it's some other affiliation. Is it a hobby that you like, right? It's important to build some established criteria or build your rapport right away with your mentor so you can build that trust, because it's about getting feedback from your mentor, and developing those relationships are key to that. So getting started, figure out what your plan is, set your goals, develop a network of mentors that you're going to keep short-term and long-term, figure out what they have in common with you, build your relationship. So once you've done all of that, you've developed what you're going to be doing, you found them, now what? So as I said, mentees drive the process. It could be the logistics are key. How often do you want to meet? Are you going to have an agenda? How often are you going to send that out? Make time. Put the time into developing the agenda. Make sure you have time open. So if you're going to meet with your mentor, that you don't move that around, right? Things come up, that's natural, but stick to the time that you've set. Be flexible and understanding. From a mentor perspective, you never know if the CEO is going to call and need a report or for you to attend to a meeting. Don't take it personally if it happens once. If it happens 4 or 5 times, maybe reevaluate the partnership, pause, circle back with the mentor, ask if, this is working for them, and regroup if possible. Mentees, be curious. Everyone learns from everyone. Ask questions. Ask your mentor for feedback. Be open and honest and take risks. So one of the key things about having a mentor is they are not in your chain of command. They should never be in your chain of command. So when you're starting out in your career, make sure that you have, as I said before, internal, external, industry mentors that you can get feedback from. You don't want people who are going to be able to influence your career, or if you ask them what may be deemed a boneheaded question, that they carry that around and think, we're not going to move this person ahead or give them this assignment because they didn't get this, or they asked this question, or they committed a cultural faux pas by not understanding the culture. So again, be open and honest, take risks, but make sure you do it outside of that chain of command. And mentors, what I would say to you is allow the mentees to drive the process. This is their plan for success, right? We all know and have great experience and stories, but it's really for them on what they want to achieve. I start every session that I meet with someone is, what is it that we're trying to achieve today? That's my first question that I ask mentees. I want to know what they want to get out of the session today. Do they want me to listen? Do they want me to get feedback? Do they want to talk about an idea? So just ask that question right out. If you have any kind of gatekeeper on your calendar, make sure they know who your mentee is. So when an email comes in or a phone call, that they're able to get on your schedule, and that could become, protected time. So ensure that. Be curious. As I said, successful partnerships learn from each other. Be a great listener. Don't offer any advice unless you're asked. And I just asked someone who I consider a very good friend and a great mentor what they felt were the 3 qualities that mentors should bring to the table. And that's empathy, adaptability, and transparency. Okay, so mentors, if you remember those 3 things, empathy, adaptability, and transparency, you will have great partnerships with your mentees. Now, how do you stay relevant? Here's a key question. You're in a company, right? Maybe you've been there 1 or 2 years. How do you stay relevant? How do you show your value to your organization, right? Everyone wants to do well, be promoted, be recognized. We all have different ideas of what that means in terms of recognition. But what is your contribution to the company? How do you stay involved? How do you stay relevant? Where do you get your news? Do you get it different sources? Are you engaged in any kind of outside activities, continuing education? I know that sounds funny that you're just finishing college and starting out, but keep relevant. Sign up for newsletters. Continue your education. Become an expert in a certain area. So I'm going to pause and tell you another story. There was a man that I worked with, and he was in risk. He was in credit risk, so working with various credit card portfolios, but he had a real passion for the environment. And the company that we worked at didn't really have an ESG group yet. He went out and he started learning everything that he could. And then he got a certification in climate change. And he started to talk more about it in meetings he was in with people he knew and his mentoring partnerships. And one day the company decided that, we should probably expand our knowledge of ESG. And we looked, the company looked out, and this person who had been talking about it, learning about it, became the person that they tapped to kind of get the ball rolling. So sometimes you can take a passion of yours and flip it into an opportunity within the organization through your continuing education and your networking and evangelizing. And so there's an opportunity that you may not have the exact role that you want, but you may be able to create a role in the future just by staying relevant and letting people know that you know about this subject. Always ask yourself, what does the organization need? Is there an opportunity for you to attend a meeting with your manager to get exposure or to learn more about what's happening in the organization? Can you take a stretch assignment? All of these things help you develop your personal development plan, which is ongoing, helps you connect to different people in the organization, and helps you contribute to the organization, because that's what all organizations want, is people who are helping them contribute to the mission, vision, value, product, or serving their customers. So those are some thoughts that I have about the benefits, how you get started, and how to manage a successful partnership. I think you've been meeting for 4 or 5 months now. Now is a great time, 4 months in your partnership, to take a look and say, how's it going? How are you doing against your goals? How often have you met? Are you going to achieve your goals by the end of your time together? And then ask yourselves, both mentee and mentor, if you would you continue this partnership beyond the end date, right? If the mentee still has goals that haven't been met, and if you still have the time, and if this is valuable to both of you, have that discussion. See if it can go beyond July. But do have an end date. But if July is not it, maybe it's August, maybe it's September, right? And then start to build the next set of partnerships that you have. So, Christian, I'm going to end there with kind of my formal comments and see what questions are out there. And I want to thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was awesome to hear about. I love the part that you talked about how the mentees need to drive it, because like I've been a part of a few mentorship programs, and you always have sort of the mentees come and talk about how they want to have, like, well, when's the mentor going to reach out to me? But no, it's about you. It's your plan. It's up to you to kind of take control. So the question I have surrounding that is, what is a way that you've seen mentors and mentees sort of go past like this type of program that we have here and stay connected, whether that be continuing to have meetings or just like, what are some unique ways that you've seen and the best ways to go about that?
Great question. So, everyone is different. Every partnership is different. When I was with Mentium, we had a special way that we matched people together to help them kind of kick off their relationship. And at this point, I would hope that each of you, your partnerships, have figured out some commonality in there. I knew partnerships that never met in an office or, by video. They were runners. And so they would have their discussions out running. So is there an activity, right? If that's appropriate, that you can continue the partnership. At the end of the time together, I would do kind of a closure discussion, like what worked well for both of you. And then at that point, mentees, think about the relationship that you've had with this person for the number of X months. And is this someone that you want to add to your grouping of people? And if so, put that out there. Say, hey, from time to time, may I call on you for this? Are you available for that, right? So maybe the relationship changes, but you're still going to be partners, right? And it may be like, hey, can I call you, or can I reach out and find out a name from you in the future? That's what's building the network. Or, I want to ping you about a certain subject. Maybe the mentor doesn't know the subject very well, but they might know someone who does, right? So again, it's back to that connection. So formally, when you get to the end, figure out if you're going to continue or not. And if you're going to continue, keep that, capacity available, that it kind of bursts when needed, and it ebbs and flows when it doesn't. But see if there's some other commonality that you have that you didn't know that you had, that you can build that continued partnership with. Did I answer that question well? I mean, that help
for people to sort of decide at the end if they're going to continue on or not, and if they're not, just make sure that you continue to have the relationship and be able to on them if you ever need to in the future. And then it looks like we have a question from the chat, and I think this was from when you were talking about your mentorship, what experience and criticism. And so some of the ways that you've kind of learned to take on that criticism with the mentorship.
How would you? Wow. Time, right? I think time is helpful. One of the things that I mentioned is being open to feedback. And I think if you're open to feedback, sometimes it can sting initially, but it may be in how the message was delivered, but it was probably a message you needed to hear that someone wasn't telling you. A lot of managers, you will find, don't like conflict. And so they're not going to give you the feedback that you need to succeed. I don't know why that is, but they don't like conflict, and even though they're managers. So that feedback that you should be getting from your manager, you're not getting. And so be open to someone in your network giving that feedback to you, right? And if you just feel like that feedback is way off, right? Go check in with someone else. Go check in with one of your other trusted advisors in your mentoring group and say, I just got this feedback. Does this align with, how your perception of me is, right? And just, align that to who you are, be open to the feedback, right? Learn from the feedback. And if you just feel like the feedback is way out of left field, check in with somebody else and then discard it, right? Sometimes, the feedback is meant to just keep you down because you may be a threat, right? So I always say that it's good to check in with someone, and it does take time. Time just builds your experience and gives you a tough skin. So, don't be discouraged, stick with it, but continue to get that feedback.
Yeah. And then earlier you were talking about how you want to have short-term mentors and you also want to have long-term mentors. How would you go about sort of deciding who falls into that category? And then you also mentioned that you don't want to have them as like your supervisor. Would you suggest having someone in your field or just someone that may know a little bit about what you're going into? So how would you kind of determine like who falls into what category?
Sure. So for sure, managers are managers. Think of manager as a coach, right? They should be giving you that feedback daily on job performance, how you're doing. Did you get this done on time? Helping you set deadlines, things like that, right? A mentor is someone outside of that. So, in my small company that I started with 3,000 people, it was difficult to find that because I said everyone knew everyone's business. We were all together. Headquarters was very small. And so I had to search outside of that. And I got that feedback from that first cube mate that I told you about, who had worked at a number of other companies who provided that information to me. So then I look back and it's like, okay, how can I build that? School associations, any other outside associations that you have, right? Look for people who are similar to you, right? You don't want to approach someone who is a mentor who's exactly the same as you, because then, you're going to get similar feedback or feedback that you already are aligned to. So I don't want to say you want a little of that friction, but you do want a little bit of that friction, right? You want someone who's a little bit different, has a little bit of a different background than you. So look to associations, look to where you're currently working, use LinkedIn. I know you're all on it. I just got some requests today. Google by job title, Google or search by skill, whatever it is. In our organization that I came from, banking, and it may not pertain to all of you, but I'm sure there's some industry association meetings, right? How do you get involved in those association meetings? They usually have attendees. Mine those attendee lists, ping them through LinkedIn, and start to build your outside industry experience group, right? So all of you may be journalism majors, communications, right? That's one industry group. You may not work in the same field, the same organizations, the same companies, but build that relationship group. So I use LinkedIn a lot for certain items. I have, just cultivated networks. So again, as you're growing your network and you're starting out, keep a Rolodex, wherever that is, and just keep in contact with people on a quarterly basis if you don't have daily or monthly interaction with them. So use those associations, school, any outside activities, and then industry is a great way to start building those opportunities. Now, when I left, the last company I worked with had 80,000 employees. It was very easy in an 80,000 person company to get outside of the chain of command, work with different business units. So I, would attend meetings with different business unit heads and their teams. And I started to listen and hone in on people who I thought aligned to some of my competencies, organizational sensibilities, similar backgrounds. And then I would ping those people offline, right? To fill whatever needed I needed. And sometimes it was short term. I didn't know anything about the payments industry, credit cards, when I started a new role, and I needed to. So I went out to, LinkedIn. I saw who was in the company that I could ping, right? And I just said, hey, I would love for you to give me some information about this. And it was short term. It was a couple months, right? But we spent some time together. We would go to the same meetings together. Afterward, I had a ton of questions that I could ask them, right? So again, I didn't want to appear that I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't want to go to my manager and ask, right? There's that chain of command issue about, hey, I don't really know what this is. But it gave me an opportunity inside my own company to ping a knowledge expert for a short-term assignment, which was get me more in-depth knowledge on credit and payments processing. So that was short-term, right? Longer term, it's how do you navigate organizational hierarchy and structure, right? May not be important to you when you're first starting out, may be a future opportunity for you. Again, that's a longer term discussion, and you're going to want to keep those mentors longer term. So, Christian, all goes back to your development plan and what is it that you want to achieve, for the next quarter and the quarter after that and the quarter after that, and how do you keep building, right? Some of those goals may be 6 quarters out, and that's what you'd want your mentor for. Some of them may be 1 quarter out, and there's your short-term mentor. So again, tie back to your goals. What is it you're trying to move forward for the next milestone?
Yeah, thank you for that. So the first time I received a mentor, I thought it was really just going to be pretty straightforward. Like they're gonna help me with my resume, interview, and start the basics. Then when I really got into like the nuts and bolts of it, I realized it's so much more than that. So what is a topic that you think is talked about a lot of mentorships? Maybe it's not talked about a lot, but is just very beneficial for maybe a topic for our parents to go over?
Yeah. AI. I think AI, you see AI in the news every single day, right? Politics, disinformation, how it can be helpful, pros and cons, right? What are those discussions that you're having inside your companies or where you're going to be working or what you're currently doing today? What do your mentors know? I just feel like those technology conversations, right? How am I going to succeed in that? How am I going to navigate in that? What do I need to learn on that? What does the mentor know, right? Do they know people in that space that I could challenge or talk with? How am I going to incorporate that into my resume? How am I going to talk about that, right? I'm just starting on my career. How am I going to frame up using AI? So I think that is a good place to start out, right? It's a neutral topic, right? It's not like, how do I navigate? Who do I want to stay clear of inside the organization, right? Because that can also kind of play into you're just job hopping and not really there to do a job, which the company has hired you to do. So I would say AI is a good topic, or pick a different topic that you think is relevant, right? To you and to the organization. If you remember back, I said, how are you contributing to the mission of the company, the 7 imperatives, The CEO usually has 6 to 7 things they want the company to focus in on, and that all gets trickled down to you. How are you tying what you're learning, contributing to the organization that aligns with what those 6 or 7 are? Those are great topics to talk to with your mentor. Do your self-assessment against those 7 in your company and say, I do well on these 3. I need help on those 4, right? Ask your mentor, how would I get started in finding someone who could help me with these? And they should be able to say, you want to look for this, look for this, look for this, right? And then that gives you a place to go. So I say because I read about 6 or 7 news stories every day on AI, and I think it's really critical right now as it's in its infancy. And you have a great opportunity starting on in your careers to really leverage that technology.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. Considering most of us are communications majors are going into HR, and AI is going to be very beneficial. So even though some of our maybe our professors don't agree with it, it's definitely going to be in the future. Just one more question from me. So you've worked in risk, you've worked with people that have been in risk. So you've kind of learned how to kind of be like work on your feet quickly. And so what is something that the people that are going into the workforce right now that they can do to kind of develop that skill and make sure that they're ready to take on challenges right when they enter the office, because that's going to be a big step for everybody to make sure that they're the first hand raised and ready to just jump into a project?
That's a great question. All right. Here's what I would say. It's the art of balance, right? You want to start out, you want people to know who you are, but it's also the balance of people may have a perception that you're coming in with zero knowledge, right? You're brand new. What can you possibly contribute, right? So one of the things that you said is really great. Raise your hand, right? Ask your manager, what can I do? What can I learn? How can I help you, right? So you're doing your job, but then you want to get yourself out there. So is there a stretch assignment? Can I work with you on this issue, right? How can I help you with this particular item, right? Develop a relationship with your manager, I think is very key. Make yourself indispensable, right? So however you can do that, I think is critical, right? Managers want people that they can trust, that they can rely on, that they can lean on. They want a good, well-functioning team. How can you contribute to that, right? In terms of, resiliency, I think your group is ahead of the game because you're communication marketing experts that understand technology. So how quickly can you do a data analysis, create a report, create a presentation, right? I worked with a senior manager one time on 37 presentations over a weekend. You just have to be resilient through that, even though you may end up at the same number 37 presentation as the first one, right? But that's part of the learning process. Some managers are very like, I need to see it. Okay, no, that's not what I want. I need to see it. You just need to go with the flow, right? And know that will happen. So again, if you are unflappable in those situations, they're going to remember that. Use your technology, your communication and marketing skills. Show them that you can do the work. Ask what you can do to help and contribute, right? Get involved. Don't go overboard getting involved. If the company has a number of resource groups, don't get involved in all of the resource groups that, you're doing 50% resource group work and 50% other work, right? So balance that out. And that's another way to build your network is through those resource groups. So I would say leverage your technology, your background. Let your manager know that you can help. Ask to help. Ask to get involved, right? And they will see that you can contribute and they'll ask you to do more, right? And get more involved in other things, right? Because you want those projects, you want the stretch assignments. That's where you're going to grow. That's where you're naturally going to show your talents to other leaders within the organization who may not be familiar with you because they're not in your business unit or chain of command, and they will see you in a different light. So again, just ask for those stretch assignments.
Yeah, thank you. If anyone else has any other questions, now would be the time. If not, while we wait to see if the chat has any questions, I will just say that we have our hops and headshots next week at 7. So hopefully all the mentors and mentees will be there. It's a good place to have maybe your meeting. But thank you very much. Looks like we don't have any questions right now. I found it extremely beneficial for myself, and I'm sure everyone else that was on it did as well. So thank you for your time. Oh, we got one more question from Wyatt. So there we go.
Sure. So I would just say, Wyatt, if you want to become a mentor, anyone can be a mentor, right? There are great tools out there that talk about how to be a mentor. Again, look internally if they have a program in the company that you're at. Externally, Mentium is always looking for mentors. I don't know, Wyatt, if you are a mentee or a mentor. You may need a little more experience if you are a mentee, but check external resources. There are a number of associations that have kind of a mentee-mentor partnership. But again, all you need to do is, what is your skill assessment? What can you bring to the table? And leverage that, right? I know a lot of companies that employ a mentoring program, and they're always looking for mentors out there. Everyone has experience. You could be a mentee one time and a mentor the next time. So don't think it's one or the other, or that once you flip over to mentor, you can't flip back to mentee, right? It's really learning from each other. So get down what your skills are. Make them different than just saying, I'm a program manager or I'm a communication expert. You're a communication expert who can do what, right? That help contribute to what. Give yourself that little niche, and then that will help you stand out when people are looking to partner with you. Hopefully, Wyatt, that answered your question. You can always ping me through LinkedIn if you have others. I'd be more than, and to all of you, I'm available on LinkedIn. I welcome any opportunity to further the discussion.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much again. I'm glad that you were able to make and we figured this out. So, but thank you very much. And I'm sure we'll be in touch very soon. So thank you. I hope everyone has a good night.